I'd like to tell you a little story about my father in law. Back in the mid 1970s, he contracted tuberculosis. No one was entirely sure, but the doctors suggested he might have picked it up from drinking raw milk when he lived on a farm as a child. Anyway, as a result of that TB, he initially lost one kidney. Over the course of the next 50 or so years, his remaining kidney gradually ceased to function, and for the last year of his life, he was on dialysis. The loss of that kidney function came with side effects. His doctor placed him on a course of tablets to take care of what he called his waterworks. But those tablets made him constipated. He was prescribed a pill to ease the constipation, which it did, but it also gave him gout. The doctor prescribed a treatment for his gout, which worked well. His gout was gone. But now he had what the doctors called restless leg syndrome, his legs constantly twitching and spasming, particularly at night. As a result of that, he couldn't sleep. So the doctor prescribed sleeping tablets. They gave him a good night's sleep. They also gave him severe migraine level headaches. He was offered painkillers to ease the headaches, but they were discovered to counteract his heart medication. At no point was he summoned to the doctor's surgery or to the hospital to go back to basics, to treat the original symptoms. Instead, a new layer of medication was used to pave over the cracks. Doctor after doctor, pill after pill, side effect upon side effect. My father in law passed away earlier this year. By the time he did so, he was taking 18 tablets a day, the majority of the pills seemingly to counteract the effects of another pill. Now, at this point, you'd be fully justified in asking what the hell I'm talking about my father in law's medical treatment. Thankfully, the answer to that is very straightforward. Replace my father in law with the demolition and construction industry, and replace all those pills, potions, medicines, and lotions with legislation. Remedy upon remedy, each piled one upon the next. Some counteract and contradict, some are there purely to address the side effects of something prescribed previously. Allow me to offer you a few examples. Most demolition will require some form of planning permission and prior approval. Demolition contractors don't just roam the countryside knocking down buildings and structures that stand in their way. But under the Building Act 1984, a 6 weeks notice must also be given to the local authority's building control department before commencing demolition. Fair enough, but could that notice not be part of the planning permission? The Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 mandates employers to ensure health and safety of employers and the public during construction and demolition activities. But placed on top of that are the CDM regs of 2015, which require proper planning and management of health and safety risks. Two regulations that at least partly achieve the same thing, surely. But even two is not enough. In addition to those specific health and safety rules, a contractor will be expected to produce and abide by a set of RAMs, risk assessment and method statements, to identify hazards and outline risk management strategies during demolition. Before demolition can commence, an asbestos survey must be conducted, and if asbestos is present, only licensed contractors can carry out its removal, following strict guidelines set out by the Health and Safety Executive. But meanwhile, the Control of Substances Hazardous to Health, or COSH 2002, requires assessment and control of exposure to hazardous substances, ensuring safe handling and disposal. So we have a regulation for asbestos and another one for hazardous substances. Is asbestos not considered hazardous? But we're still not done. Demolition projects impacting public roads or footpaths must implement traffic management plans to ensure the safe movement of vehicles and pedestrians around the site. The Control of Pollution Act 1974 regulates noise and vibration from construction sites, requiring measures to minimise impact on nearby residents and businesses. While the Environmental Protection Act 1990 addresses statutory nuisances, including dust and emissions from construction activities, necessitating control measures to prevent public health issues. And this isn't just red tape, this is red tape woven into an impenetrable wall. That wall requires constant monitoring and policing by the authorities, and it requires demolition and construction companies and workers to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the law, way beyond that of your average solicitor. And that's all before we even get to the regulatory minefield that is sustainability and the environment. The Environmental Protection Act 1990 establishes a duty of care for waste producers, mandating responsible handling, storage, and disposal of waste with proper documentation and use of licensed carriers. The Waste Regulations 2011 require proper classification and management of construction and demolition waste, including maintaining waste transfer notes and appropriate waste codes. And while they've not been a legal requirement since 2013, site waste management plans are still considered best practice for documenting waste volumes, management methods, and recycling targets. I'll save you doing the maths. There are a dozen items of legislation to read, absorb, understand, communicate, control, and adhere to. 12 regulations or guidances heaped upon each other, many of them overlapping, many of them contradictory. 12 potential cracks through which an unsuspecting demolition company or a worker might fall. A more cynical person might suggest that's precisely the point, that this Jenga tower of regulation has been arranged to fall upon the unsuspecting. To make matters worse, this all runs contrary to the demolition way. In the world of demolition, we tear down the outdated and the outmoded relics of the past to make way for something new, something better suited to the world of today and tomorrow. Yes, we do salvage some elements of the past and carry them forward to the new, but only if and when appropriate. The earliest of those regulations that I've just mentioned dates back to 1974, when Harold Wilson was the UK Prime Minister. Since then, we've had 11 different prime ministers, and Lord alone knows how many government ministers and cabinet reshuffles. And as each of them has come and gone, the swamp of regulation has grown deeper and more contaminated. They could have introduced a single overarching item of legislation in consultation with demolition practitioners. They could have taken an even bigger shortcut and introduced a regulated licensing scheme containing clear guidelines on demolition processes and procedures. They did neither of those things. Instead, successive governments has just piled one regulation on top of another. And the effect on the industry is much the same as the effect on my father-in-law. They may have cured one problem, but the cure has resulted in a serious and debilitating headache.